Hello friends, welcome to History Doc. I'm Luna Fa. Before you get lost in this video, make sure to hit the subscribe button.
All right, let's dive straight into things today. We are unpacking a truly harrowing, meticulously documented survival explainer that takes us into the absolute darkest corners of a closed society. Seriously, this is a story that almost defies belief. It's going to challenge pretty much everything we understand about human resilience, family bonds, and just the sheer, undeniable will to live.
We're jumping right into the freezing courtyard of Camp 14 in North Korea. I want you to picture this. It's November 29, 1996. A 13-year-old boy named Shin In-geun is standing in the middle of this massive open field, surrounded by thousands of prisoners and heavily armed guards. But he isn't looking at the crowd. He's staring straight ahead at the wooden poles where his own mother and brother are tied up. The executioners tighten a noose around his mother's neck. Then, gunshots ring out, and his brother is killed. Now, the absolute most terrifying part of this entire scene, young Shin stood there, watched his own family be put to death, and didn't shed a single tear. No fear, no visible emotion whatsoever.
And right there, that poses a massive, deeply unsettling question for our explainer today. I mean, how does a child feel absolutely nothing in that moment? Well, to understand his total lack of remorse, we really have to look at the geopolitical system and the meticulous psychological conditioning that literally built him from the very day he was born.
Zooming out for a second, North Korea operates under these incredibly strict, rigid rules where everyday choices are entirely controlled by the state. We're talking about a country where citizens can only choose from exactly 28 state-approved haircuts. Blue denim jeans? Completely banned. They're seen as a symbol of Western influence. There's no access to the global internet you and I use. There's only a tightly monitored state intranet called Kwamyong. And the worship of the Kim dynasty is so absolute that, get this, if a house catches fire, a citizen's first duty is to save the portraits of the leaders, even if it costs them their own life.
And all of this brilliantly, or maybe terrifyingly, illustrates the paranoia baked into everyday life there. The state utilizes a system called the Inman ban. Think of it like a neighborhood watch, but mandatory and incredibly sinister. It ensures citizens are constantly policing one another out of absolute fear. No one trusts their neighbors. You're literally required to report any anti-government sentiment immediately. It basically turns the entire country into a giant open-air prison where the inmates are the ones guarding each other.
So, the absolutely crucial point here is this specific policy known as the 3 generations punishment. Under this rule, if you're suspected of a crime against the state, you aren't the only one who pays for it. Your parents, your children, and your grandchildren all share your sentence. And this right here explains exactly why Shin was born into a life sentence. Decades before his birth, during the Korean War, 2 of his uncles fled to South Korea. Because of that one action, his grandfather and his father were condemned to Camp 14. Shin inherited their invisible crime the very second he took his first breath.
15,000. Just let that number sink in for a second. That staggering number represents the amount of prisoners serving life sentences inside this heavily guarded 60-square-mile total control zone known as Camp 14. It's located roughly 40 miles north of Pyongyang, surrounded by these steep, unforgiving mountains and the Taedong River. It's completely isolated from the outside world. And the entire perimeter? It's surrounded by high-voltage electric fences, manned 24/7 by armed guards up in sniper towers.
To truly wrap our heads around his completely distorted worldview, we have to look at how he was raised. While kids in the rest of the world were learning, math or science, Shin's schooling was purely about forced labor and blind state loyalty. Children were literally taught that it was their duty to spy on their own parents. And punishment for mistakes was brutal and immediate. For example, one day Shin accidentally dropped and broke a sewing machine. His supervisor actually cut off a piece of his right middle finger as punishment. Human life was valued way less than machine parts. Shin even witnessed a teacher beat a young girl to death just because she had secretly hoarded a few kernels of corn. And to survive this level of absolute deprivation, hunger just eradicated any sense of family bonds. The starvation was so severe in the camp that inmates regularly ate rats, frogs, and insects. In one desperate instance, Shin actually picked undigested corn kernels out of cow dung just to get something, anything, in his stomach. In this kind of environment, survival is a literal zero-sum game. Shin chillingly viewed his own mother not as someone to care for him, but strictly as competition for survival rations. If she ate, that meant less food for him, period. So, this lifelong brainwashing leads us right back to the horrifying moment from our opening. One night, a 13-year-old Shin overheard his mother and brother whispering about an escape plan. Terrified that he'd be punished under that generational rule for their actions, and desperate to be seen as a good prisoner, he snitched. He reported his own family to a night guard. He fully expected a reward for this, maybe some extra food, right? But instead, the guards tortured him for 7 months. They literally suspended him over hot coals and pierced his skin with an iron hook just to extract more information, and then after all that, they dragged him out into that courtyard to watch his family die. But then, a massive turning point arrives. Years pass. Shin is now 21 years old, working in a textile factory, when he crosses paths with a political prisoner named Park. Now, Park is different from the others. He's educated, he's traveled to places like China and East Germany, and he starts telling Shin about things that are just unimaginable to him. And he's not talking about complex political theories. He's talking about sensory details. He whispers to Shin about broiled chicken, steaming bowls of white rice, savory pork, and a world outside where people can just travel freely and wear whatever they want. For Shin, these stories were basically fairy tales, but they woke up a sliver of humanity inside him.
Ignited by those incredible sensory details, Shin and Park actually form a desperate plan. Shin knows the internal layout of the camp like the back of his hand, and Park knows the geography of the outside world. So they wait for a brutally, numbingly freezing day while gathering wood up on a snowy, 1,200-foot mountain right near the camp's perimeter. The severe cold is absolutely key here. It forces the freezing guards to slow down their patrols, creating this tiny, fleeting gap in their line of sight.
On January 2nd, 2005, they finally make their move. They sprint toward the lethal high-voltage fence. Park goes first, trying to quickly slip through the wires. But he makes a fatal miscalculation. He touches the high-voltage wire and is electrocuted instantly, his body left frozen against the fence. In a harrowing, split-second decision, Shin realizes he either keeps going right now or he dies trying. So he uses his friend Park's lifeless smoking body as an insulated shield. He literally crawls directly over Park to get past those high-voltage wires. Even doing that, his legs slip and hit the bottom wire, causing severe, deep burns. But he makes it to the other side. Against all impossible odds, Shin becomes the first person born in Camp 14 to ever break out. But getting over the fence was just the beginning. His precarious journey to actual freedom took years. On day 1, bleeding and absolutely terrified, he breaks into a farmer's barn and manages to steal a North Korean military uniform. And this disguise literally saves his life. Ordinary citizens actually bow and salute him as he walks down the road. He trades stolen rice for biscuits and cigarettes, slowly making his way up to the Chinese border. Once there, he uses those same cigarettes and food to bribe the starving North Korean border guards. He sneaks into China, works totally under the radar in a Shanghai restaurant, and eventually has this crazy chance encounter with a journalist who actually helps him reach the South Korean embassy.
Safe at last, he changes his name to Shin Dong-hyuk to protect himself. And instead of just hiding away, he turns this profound trauma into incredibly powerful advocacy. He moves to the United States and joins the nonprofit group Liberty in North Korea, working tirelessly to expose these massive human rights violations to a global audience. Through documentaries and his best-selling biography, he forces the world to acknowledge a dark reality that the regime desperately tries to hide.
So as we wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with a final, provocative thought. Shin Dong-hyuk escaped the absolute impossible. He climbed over the unimaginable to literally find his own humanity. But it really makes us wonder, how many thousands of voiceless prisoners, entire forgotten generations, are still trapped behind those electrified fences right now, just waiting for a whisper of the outside world? It's a chilling reality that continues as we speak. Thanks for walking through this incredible story with me today, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.
If you liked this video, give it a thumbs up, share it, comment below, and don't forget to subscribe.